Commands given by God in the Bible. Deuteronomy 20:13 through 14. When the Lord your God hands the town over to you, use your swords to kill every man in the town. But you may keep for yourselves all the women, children, livestock, and other plunder. You may enjoy the plunder from your enemies that the Lord your God has given you.
You're taking this out of context. Context is everything. This is the excuse that Christians give, or Bible believers, I should say, give in order to accept this Old Testament God and his horrific behavior towards other human beings that he so-called claimed that he loves. That goes against the whole idea that this God is for everybody, that this God is not just the God of Israel, and that the people of that time frame believed their God was only for them and other people's gods was for those other people. So what is the context then of Deuteronomy 20? Well, when you read Deuteronomy 20, what you see is that Moses is given commands by God as to how they are supposed to act during times of war. It starts out by talking about the fact that when your enemies are coming against you for war, then the first thing that you do is have the priests go out to the army and to inquire to them. Have you, any of your men, got a wife and haven't dedicated your house? Well, leave the army, go dedicate your house first. Have any of you been planning to get married, but you haven't quite gotten married yet? Well, go back and get married. If any of you have built a vineyard, but you haven't tasted the product of your vineyard, the wine, go back, taste the product of your vineyard. If any of you are disheartened, feel weak of heart, go back, because we don't want the other guys to feel that same way. The whole first part of it is set up that way. Then it gets into the part that the gentleman here was speaking of. And I'm gonna give you a little bit more information as to why it's saying go and kill everyone, every man, every woman, every child, every old person. It actually starts in verse 10 before he got to verse 14, where it says that when you draw near to a town to fight against it, offer it terms of peace. Let's see what these terms of peace are. Are they going to say, hey, we're going to trade with one another, we're going to be peaceful neighbors with one another? Let's see if that's what it says. Verse 11. If it accepts your terms of peace and surrenders to you, then all the people in it shall serve you at forced labor. What is forced labor? Slavery. And then it goes on. But if it does not accept your terms of peace and makes war against you, then you shall besiege it. And when the Lord your God gives it into your hands, you shall put all the males to the sword. You may, however, take as your plunder the women, the children, livestock, and everything else in the town, all its spoils. You may enjoy the spoils of your enemy. So exactly what this gentleman was saying, that if they don't make peace with you, and that peace only comes if they decide that they are going to be your forced labor, they're going to be your slaves, then you have the right to go and plunder that city, take all its women, to kill all the men, so that you can now, essay all these women and make them into your wives or slave wives, that you take all their cattle and take all these things. But it just doesn't stop there, because we have to put this in context. But at 15, it says that thus you shall treat all the towns that are very far from you, which are not towns of these nations here. So that's how you treat the towns that are far away. But as for the towns of the peoples that the Lord your God has given to you as an inheritance, you must not let anything that breathes remain alive. So the faraway towns, you can plunder the women, the children, the livestock, and the animals. But for the closer towns that this God is supposed to be giving an inheritance to these people, do not let anything that breathes remain alive. That means the men, the women, the children, the animals, everything. 17, indeed, you shall annihilate them, the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites, just as the Lord your God commanded, so that they may not teach you to do all the horrid things that they do for their gods, and thus sin against the Lord your God. So effectively, Christians will say that the context of this is that if they do not completely annihilate the people who live within the realm of the inheritance of the Israelites, then the Israelites may become subjective to believing in the gods or practicing in the rituals of those people's gods. So in order to not do that, let's just genocide all the people. Now I want you to think about it. A person who is 3-year-old, 2-year-old, 1-year-old, if they grow up and they are growing up as captives, they are growing up as adopted children of the Israelite, would they not learn to worship the Israelite God? But no, can't take that risk because this 3-year-old who doesn't even know about Shamash, who doesn't know about Baal, who doesn't know about Enlil, that 3-year-old, of course, may grow up and convince you to start worshiping something that they never had any participation in their entire existence. But this God is so weak and so afraid that what he has to do is to annihilate the 3-year-old, the 2-year-old, the 1-year-old. This is the love of this God who is for everyone. And this situation is no better example than what we find in Joshua. In the books of Joshua, especially when we get to about Joshua 6 or 7, when we talk about the fall of Jericho and the fall of Ai, what you see in this instance is the horrific effects of the belief in this God. According to this story that is not backed up by any archaeology, and in which archaeology actually goes against the telling of this story, Joshua goes into Jericho and kills every man, every woman, every child, all the livestock, and burns the city down, except for the prostitute and her family and her workers that helped them out. So except for the traders of Jericho, they go in and they kill and genocide everyone. But one dude, Achan, decides that he's going to keep a little silver and gold for himself. And when they find out, because they lost the first battle of Ai, they take Achan, although he's the transgressor, they take him, they take his daughters, they take his son, they take his livestock, they take him to the valley of Anchor. First, they stone them to death. Then they burn them. Then they heap a bunch of stones on top of them. This family is killed because they believe that their transgression is the transgression of all of Israel. And then after that, they proceed to go and guerrilla warfare on the city of Ai and destroy Ai in its entirety in the same way that they did Jericho, according to the story, which is to kill all the men, kill all the women, kill all the babies, kill all the old people, and burn the city to the ground. But in this one, they do get to keep the spoils of some of the animals and whatnot. The only good thing about this is that the city of Jericho did not have walls since the 1500s BCE. And at the time frame of Joshua, there were no walls of Jericho to come down. They didn't know why the walls were down, but when this was written in the 500s BCE, they assumed the story. The only good thing about this is that the city of Ai was a prominent city from 3100 BCE during the time frame of the Sumerian Akkadian Empire to 2400 BCE. After that, it remained uninhabited until the early Iron Age, which starts in the 1200s down to the 500s. So small village was built there, and it was built there with no interruptions, no devastation. So thankfully, this story is just somebody trying to write a history in the 500s and take claim for an abandoned city during a time frame that they claim Joshua was running around, take claim for a city that walls had fallen down and they didn't know why the walls had been fallen down, because Jericho was uninhabited between 1500 BCE until 1000 BCE. So they're taking claims of things that they didn't know how it happened, what had happened, and so they are just staking their claim. But this shows the horrific mentality of this God, and this is why we live in a world today where people are claiming this book and they are genociding the Palestinians. They are taking the houses and properties of these people who has been living there for generations because they cite Deuteronomy 20. They cite the conquest of Joshua in order to justify their genocidal ill treatments of people today. If anyone in America did this today, we would put them in jail. We would call them a psychopath. But hey, it happened thousands of years ago, and God said so. but it's not out of context. So always remember you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey. Good